Okay, on your right hand, first of all, the feel feels good. The notes are smooth and connected. The part's right. This is just a technical hand thing. Your right hand isn't very consistent on certain strings in terms of alternation. When you're on the E and A string, you tend to pick a lot with the first finger just over and over again. And then as you go to the higher strings, it starts to alternate every time 1 2 1 2 or 2 1 2 1.
Okay.
Right, play it and think about your alternation in your right hand. Do a 1 2 alternation on every single thing you're playing. No, 1 2 1 2. I wouldn't compromise a floating thumb. See, on that, basically let your thumb kind of. I'm gonna play on a different place on my neck in terms of my left hand, but my right hand will do the same thing as yours will. You see my right good?
Yes.
So you have 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. But I should also be able to go back and do a 2 1. 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. Now, this what I'm talking about now is not a deal breaker, but the faster you play stuff, the more the control of your alternation or lack thereof will affect the timing and quality of what you're trying to play. At slower tempos, it almost doesn't matter what you do. You know, you can pick everything with one finger, and if my eyes were shut and it's grooving and feeling good, who cares, right? But the thing is that the faster you play, the more detailed the part you're playing, you right hand control becomes an issue or can affect the quality of the part. In fact, there are some bass parts where you have to work more on the right hand part of it than you do the left.
Okay.
Just due to the sequence of events, and how things are orchestrated, and you might be raking on some notes. And also being able to rake and control the raking part of it's a good idea too. So if I had 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 2 1 2 1 1, so every time I come down this way, I always rake whatever finger hits the last note on the higher string going to the next note on the next lower string. It rakes down to it. That's generally how I played most of the time. But if I want to, I can turn it on just to do a 1 2 1 2 or 2 1 2 1 if I need to. So it's really about exercises and control, because sometimes that's going to matter. So I think the issue here with what I saw you doing is that it wasn't under your total control. It was just kind of doing what it was doing. It was still feeling good, so it wasn't, like I said, that at that particular tempo and what you were doing, there wasn't a big deal about it. But I think I just wanted to make you aware of that, so that, that if I said, okay, now do a 1 2 alternation on every single thing, keep your hand the same. Don't change the way you were playing, because you had a nice floating thumb thing going on. But as soon as I asked you to alternate every time, all of a sudden the hand got kind of off centered and wasn't sure what to do, because you're asking it to do something it's not familiar with.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed a couple places where I felt like I was using the one finger twice.
Well, on the E and A string, you like all the notes on the E string, you hit just about every one of those with the first finger. But as you started going to the higher string, you started alternating more as you went to the higher string. On the A string, you were still hitting some first finger notes together. But as soon as you got to the D and G string, you were alternating every time. And that was consistent through, I watched you do it a couple times through. And it was consistent pretty much the same way every time.
Okay. I'll have to slow that down and.
So I would, just for exercises in control, just to be able to say, okay, I want to do it this way, and then be able to do it, right?
Right.
Because again, there might be a situation where you have to actually control exactly what the right hand does. I've had bass parts like that before, where I had to actually where the right hand part was harder than the left hand part.
So when I'm playing that sixth string, I think I'm keeping it up above. Is that how?
What, the thumb?
Yeah.
I let my thumb rest on the pickup. My thumb basically stays a string behind what I play every time. So when I'm playing on my lower string, in my case a B string, but let's just pretend like this is a 4-string bass and I'll play on the bottom 4 here. When I'm playing on that, what would be your E string, my thumb's lying just on the pickup like it would lie on the string if I were playing on the A string. So my thumb is a string behind what I play every single time. Yeah, so when I'm playing on the E string, my thumb's going to be sitting, if I were playing your bass, I'd probably be sitting on that pickup, but don't let it press up against the cliff of it. Kind of let it sit on top of it if there's room. Don't sit on the cliff of it. Just back it off enough to where it's not interfering with the E string vibration. I know you haven't got a whole lot of room there, but yeah, just keep the thumb a string behind what you're playing. That's what I do.
Right, I'll do that because I think I was kind of just keeping it up.
Well, when you were doing it with the first finger, it was kind of doing that. It was up a little bit, yeah, over the E string, but then it settled down on the E string when you went to the A. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't let it float over the E string if that's comfortable for you to do. Just so long as it's not interfering with the vibration of the E string when you're playing it. But I would say on the other strings, like you want the thumb lying flat in order to get the muting advantage. You want the thumb lying flat on the strings, especially when you're on your G string. That thumb should be lying flat on the E, A, and D.
I can tell I like it laying better on the pickup because I think
I do too. That's where I usually keep mine. I think it stabilizes the hand a little bit.
I feel like while I'm doing this, I'm thinking about my thumb.
Well, remember we talked about the practice circle?
Yeah.
There's going to be times where you're going to focus on just this part of the circle. So, don't worry about the other stuff when you're here. Then when you're over here, don't worry about this. I mean, all this stuff is not going to happen in a day. It's about the, day-to-day, kind of dealing with it, that you rotate around the circle, that you work on different aspects of what you're doing. So as long as you're consistent with what you're doing and the way you practice, it'll get there. Sometimes not as fast as we'd like, but it'll get there. It's just